Is this Mesprit considered a 9? Let's take a look at this card together and figure that out. But before we do that, let's go to the dings here and here. Now if you want to skip to a particular part of the video, check out the timestamps here. Welcome back everybody to Guess That Grade. My name is MrGrade and we're going to go ahead and take a look at this Mesprit that I have. Before you even decide to start grading a card, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? And I would say most of the time for me, especially for me, I have this at YouTube channel, it doesn't matter the value of the card and the fees and costs that goes into grading the card, as long as I'm interested in grading it. And in this case, it's for my personal collection, so I personally don't mind spending the money on a $3 card to spend $35 getting it graded. However, that is something you may want to take in consideration if you're a vendor, you're trying to sell cards, or just invest in it for the future. Now, if you're looking for something, for example, this card that we're looking at today, and you're trying to decide if you want to get it graded or not, taking the consideration of the value of the card, which does change like every single day, just like the stock market, but you want to take that in consideration as well as the fees that you're going to be paying, right? So it's very possible that $5 card you bought today might be worth $45 in 2 weeks just because of pump and dumping or just its illustration or whatever it might be. But what we want to do is take that in consideration. So I'm going to show you that real quick. The first thing I like to do is use price charting. And price charting is a lot of people don't like it, or they say they don't like it, but it's actually an incredibly useful tool, especially if you just want a one-stop shop for grades for PSA. Here we can see the card is $8.57 raw. So let's say you didn't pull this card, you wanted it for yourself. You're going to have to spend about $8, $8.50 on the card if you're paying for market price right now. However, if you grade the card and you get a 10, you get $88 back from a PSA perspective. So you kind of have to do the calculations. You have to look at yourself and say, what is the base cost value of this card? How much is the grading fee for the service that I want to go through? Is it PSA? Is it TAG? Is it DegreeGrading? Is it CGC? Who am I going through and how much does that cost? Another thing I like to take in consideration that people don't is you have to ship the card, and some companies make you pay for shipping returns as well. That includes TAG and PSA both do that. So let's take a step back. The card is worth, let's just say rounded $8. So you paid $8 for the card. You had to pay $30 for the actual grading of the card. Then you have to pay for fees for shipping and insurance that is required in this case, like TAG or PSA. You have to pay for that. So it adds all together. So what you ask yourself is, does that total value actually offset the difference of what you're going to get for a PSA 10 for this card? If you're trying to do a quick flip, like grade and flip, this is very important. If you're trying to do something where you're holding for your own personal collection, this is not as significant for you. You can hold on to it and it'll probably increase in price as it keeps going on. The next step I like to do is go to eBay. That actually is my keyboard. It's really, really loud. Coding keyboard, though, and I don't code. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do Mesprit 204. We're going to search for that card again. And you can already see that some popped up here, but we want to focus on the left-hand side. We want to look at the filtering options. And we want to look at that because this is going to show us the most recently sold items that are in eBay. And if you go to like card shows or anything like that, you often will find people referencing this page, not necessarily price charting, but recent solds for eBay. So we already have an idea of what PSA goes for based on price charting. We're going to go to TAG, which it shows underneath professional graders. We're going to pop that open. We're also going to check out 10s, and then we're going to go all the way down here, and I'm going to select the sold items, which marks completed and sold items. So now we're filtered for TAGGrading, 10s, and that are already sold. So we know this is the most recently sold item for that cost. And I think PSA said it was like $88 or something for their 10s. We can see here off the bat, $70, $71, $60. And one of the things you want to make sure you're paying attention to is language. If it shows in Japanese, it's most likely going to be a smaller price. So if you see a kind of thing where the price is significantly different, take that in consideration that like a $44, like this might be a Japanese one or it's not. Nope, this one's an English one. So we want to take that in consideration. So when we're looking at this card, we're seeing it's being sold for 70, 71, 60, 42. And then there's a one in end of September for 113. So we do the tag grading. I'm going to unclick the 10 and I'm going to look at the 9s. And you're probably asking yourself like, okay, well, like I know it's roughly about 70, but how can I make sure? Essentially what people do at card shows is that they like to go through and average the most recent sold, and then they'll get their calculation, right? That's what you can do. So just add it up, total up the 5, divide by 5, whatever, and you got your number. Now, when we're going through here, we're looking at the most recent solds again for tag 9s. We have one that sold recently November 8th, so a little over a month ago for 30 bucks, one September 15. And people like to say, hey, back in like 3 months ago, it was only selling for this much. But the most recently sold one was $30 back in November. That's the most recent one. So most people are probably going to go based off of that. Not only was it selling for 30 bucks, but they were paying for $10 delivery. It's pretty fair, generally speaking, that 9s are the same value as a raw card. So usually people just grade them and break the slab if they get a 9 back. But I think with tag, if you wanted to, a tag 9 is, in my opinion, if it's only centering specific, is equivalent to a 10 PSA. Now, what I would say is Degree is, in my experience, more critical on their services than PSA is. So if you, the same thing applies with Degree as what we just did with Tag. If you can find a Degree 10, especially if it's like half the cost and value of a PSA 10, crack it and then resubmit to PSA or Tag, because you're gonna get a lot more value out of that. Tag or Degree is so small in comparison. It's going to take years for their value to start matching up publicly to other companies like them. So if you really want it for your own personal collection for degree grading, which is what I'm doing, it's a lot cheaper. It's less expensive, right? Going with Degree is great if you want to submit a bunch of cards. It's great for my channel because I get a grading rubric to share with you guys to go over an official report from a professional grader, not just some amateur doing it for a YouTube channel. If you're going through Tag or PSA, it costs a lot more, but and it takes a considerable amount of time, but at least you're getting it from a service that's going to allow you to have more value in the future. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any videos showing me doing this, but I just bought a printer. It's over here. You can't see it. It's an Epson 4200X. I believe that's what it's called. Otherwise, I just made that up. And what I like to do is I get my card. I got it specifically because as a scanner, it's not like one of those ones that run through. It's just a top scanner. And then I go through and I put the card on top of it just like that, face down, and then I scan it to my phone, and then I upload it and I use a card centering app. Now, there's a couple different tools you can use. You have your normal centering tool like this, where you lay it on the front of the card. You make sure that the black borders are on the, is centered on the card, on the edges, and then you compare it to this rubric and it'll tell you yes or no. This is a great tool. It's cheap, it's affordable. It's like less than $10 on Amazon, great tool to use. However, that depends on if you're able to lay it down perfectly, if you get it laid down perfectly, and also if your card is cut correctly. So there's this, and also it depends on the surface you're using. If you look at my tolerances I've talked about in the past, PSA and Tag have the same front centering tolerance, right? 10%. Degree grading has 0 tolerance, so it has to be a perfect 50-50 all the way around. However, the back is significantly different. PSA allows, I believe, a like 50% difference. Tag allows a 30% tolerance, and then Degree offers a 6% tolerance. So the first thing I do is I have a folder here for my Mesprit. All my videos, everything I make goes into this one folder, and it gets pretty big by the time I'm done making this video. But I have my scanning from the Epson, and it's the front and then the back. And you can see I already have them done, but for the sake of science, let's do it together. So let's grab the front right here. We're gonna drag it into this tool, and we're gonna use that image. It does have a little advertisement, obviously, a free tool, so I'll take an advertisement all day if I don't have to pay for something. And we're gonna just wait for a moment while this card is loading. It looks like we got the X that popped up, and now we have a Mesprit, okay? It's fully loaded. Pretty nice layout. You can easily see that all the lines here are on the page, and then you're just going to grab this. It's just like the centering app tool on your phone, but you have a lot more control in my opinion because you're not using your finger, you're using your mouse, so you have a lot more accuracy. So the first thing we're going to do is it's doing a pretty good job right here of trying to line it up on top of the card. We're going to try to put that line directly on the edge for the exterior and then the interior line as well. It did a pretty good job on its own, so I'm going to leave that one alone. And then we're going to take that inside one and try to line it up exactly right on there. So I'm just kind of moving in, putting it right there. And then we're just going to go ahead and speed run this, but we're going to do the exact same thing. And the other thing that I should say is that with the scanner, it's really, really nice because of the fact that when you put it in the scanner and you close the top down, I also put like a heavy, like I actually have a portable battery that's quite heavy, and I put that on top of the scanner to just make sure that the card is fully pressed flat. If the card is not completely flat and you try to take a screenshot or take a picture of the card, it's going to have a little bit of a dip to it. Most cards do, they're not normally perfectly flat. So when you have this completely flattened down, you actually get an accurate measurement of the card, and you also be able to see if there's any defective cuts on the card for rounding on the edges, which we'll talk about another time. So let's go through here. Again, we'll speed run this. So now that we have all the dots aligned, everything's on here just fine. I'm actually going to compare it to what I did previously, because if you don't do it the same way every single time, you're going to get a different grade back. So let's just pull up that grade. Right here's what I got. What we're seeing on the front is the top and bottom have a 49%, 51%. And what that means is that if you take 50% as the perfect 50-50, then you subtract from that, right? So 49 minus 50 is 1%, and then same thing obviously is going to be the opposite side. So that's a 2% tolerance. So from a degree grading standard where you have to have a perfect 50 out of 50, you're not getting a gem mint 10 if you submit this in. When you're looking at PSA and tag, they have a different tolerance, okay? So they both allow up to 10%. I believe it's 45 to 55. And what that means is that on both sides, you have a total of 10% that is allowed. So when we look at this, 49 to 51, that's only 2%. It's perfectly within the 10% tolerance, right? Perfectly fine there. Now we're looking at the left and right, and again, we're looking at the 45 to 55. And so if you're taking 50 minus 44 for that left side, it's 6%. 6 times 2 is 12. 2% over tolerance. You're not getting a gem mint 10 on PSA or tag just based on the front centering, unfortunately. And it tells you down here, which is pretty cool because usually you have to pay for the service. PSA 9, SGC 9, BGS 8, Edge, which is their company rating, is a 9 as well. So after we do that, we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing on the back. So rather than going through the whole thing again, we're going to go ahead and just pull up the grade on the back of the card. We have this here. We're seeing left and right, top and bottom. Again, it's when you're going for centering, you're going based off of the worst one, right? So when you're looking at PSA, tag, or degree, it doesn't matter if you get a 50 out of 50 like we have here. Left and right says perfect 50 out of 50. That's awesome. That's amazing. Now, if the top and bottom was like 30, 70, it doesn't matter. It cancels out the left and right, because even though the left and right's perfect, there's gonna be a huge gap difference in the top and bottom, right? But fortunately for us, we have a different tolerance. PSA has a very incredibly lenient tolerance on the centering. So on the back, it's gonna be, I think you have a 50% spread. So basically you can have whatever you want on the back and you're fine. Tag is a little bit more strict. I believe there's 30%, it'll show on the screen here. So when we're doing that, again, we're doing 50 minus whatever this is. So when we're looking at the left and right, 50 is 0. You have a perfect left and right. Perfect, that's great. Top and bottom, we're getting a 50 minus 47. 50 minus 47 is 3%, okay? 3 times 2, because you're equating for both sides, top and bottom in this case, it is 6% tolerance. So in this case, this is actually a gem mint 10 for degree, tag, and PSA, which is amazing. The first thing I like to do is get these examination gloves that I have here. I got black because I just aesthetically think it works well for grading. What I'll do is I'll get my black gloves, I put them on, and then I get the card, I put them on a really nice fine cloth tabletop. So like a playmat's perfectly fine. I have a black one just for the purpose of this video. And then I take the cards out of its sleeves. I have a very nice microfiber cloth. It's incredibly soft. It won't leave any scratches or residue. Well, as I say that, something falls off, but it won't leave any scratches or residue on your card itself. And you just run that over the front and back of the card. Just to make sure that, again, there's no oil, no fingerprints, no type of dots. Because sometimes when you look at like a penny sleeve, you'll see some small white dots on there. That could just be like dust or something else that's left over on the card. So just make sure you do this so you clean it off. Now, as we start moving the card back and forth underneath the light, we're getting different angles. You're gonna see different things on here. And what I'm really looking at is a few different categories. I'm looking for scratches and scuffs. So anything that's visible there, even under angled light, we wanna be mindful of. We wanna look at stains, discolorations, any kind of dots. That's why cleaning up the card is really important, because there may be what you perceive as dots that are impactful to the card's grading, which are just fabric or something like that. Then we want to look at fading gloss and print saturation. I have yet to actually see an experience of that because I haven't got my cards graded back yet. So once I get that, I'm very happy to share that with you all. And then production defects. We look at indentations, dents, or press marks. Now, when we're talking about dents in this category, that's significant. Specifically, any kind of crease that's in the card or any dent mostly drops it down automatically to a 6, regardless of the service you're using. You're defaulted to a 6, and then you go down from there. So when you see a dent in the card or a crease, avoid that unless you just don't care. And the last one is a print line. And I have a Squirtle that I love to use as my representative for this because Squirtle, it has very clear print lines, doesn't need angled lighting, you can just see it. I call it a micro impression only visible underneath angled light, so it's a very, very minor thing. So the note that I left for myself is slight indentation on the bottom left corner on the front, on the border, and then a slight indentation on the left border on the back. So for that, because it's so minor, if I had to give you like 100% point perspective, I would give it a 95 out of 100 for just that one section. Now, with the surface, looks beautiful. It looks like it's a very, very good conditioned card. I'm gonna go ahead, pull up my microscope, and do a review of the corners and edges. So as I do this, obviously I'm taking off the sleeve when I'm doing it because the sleeve creates some different things, especially with the reflection of the light going through it. And I like to take my time. The first thing I do is I go through every edge because the corners are very obvious to see, the edges are harder to see, and sometimes I will see some like white speckling or silvering that I did not see from underneath angled light with my naked eye. So I like to go very slow through each piece and just confirm on the front and back because they are two different layers of cardboard. So the front could be damaged and the back could not be. And usually it does hit both, but you want to just double check. So as we're going through the edges, I do see some slight silvering on the front right side of the card, which you'll see here. And then on the back left of the card, and I keep looking at my notes here, which is what I'm referencing, on the bottom left of the card, we see some slight white speckling on the edge. Now, when you're doing edges, you're technically, you're kind of doing them at the same time. So as we do the edges, we're going to go do the corners now. And the corners, I did notice a slight, incredibly minor lift on the top left and right corner, and then the bottoms were perfectly fine. But I did notice that on the front and back of the card. In this case, it did impact both. For the corners and edges, I gave it a 90% out of 100. It's not incredibly severe. So what I would say is that it is a mint 9 for the corners and edges. So after taking everything in consideration, the centering, the surface, the corners, and the edges, which are the 4 things, what we come back to is right about 90% in my opinion, based on the rubric that I completely made up with no justification, and I will adjust this as I go on with my grading journey. I gave it a 9. So mostly because the centering was off, that's the bigger discrepancy. So I gave it a mint 9, that's where I think it'll come back as. I'm interested in understanding what your thoughts are. Do you think that this is actually gonna get a 9 as well, or do you think it's gonna get lower or higher depending on that? I am going through degree grading, so it's a little bit more harsh there. But we'll see what it actually happens as. But I think from a tag and PSA standard, we're probably around a 9 on this card. Might be even higher for PSA.
Well, this is my first type of vlog video, so I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any comments for me, please leave them down below. Until next time, keep guessing that grade.